This is going to be a video response to Johanan Raatz, How Does God Exist? I'm not entirely sure if I'm pronouncing that right or not, so if I'm getting it wrong, please do correct me, Johanan. But I'm going to be questioning the argument for the immaterial mind, which he gives in his, it in the video, How Does God Exist? And he aims to establish this first so that he can then establish that God is an immaterial mind. And this goes to answer various questions that are posed to him by different YouTubers about how God could possibly exist, why his nature doesn't change, what his nature is, different things of this sort. So we're just going to get on with addressing that sort of issue right now. Raatz attempts to argue first for the immaterial mind using an argument involving possible worlds and solipsism. Possible world semantics, I hope that everybody who's watching this video is familiar with possible world semantics, and I'll get a little bit into what solipsism is a little later on, because it's important that we establish what these things are so that we can see whether his argument is sound or not. But first, I'll let Raatz formulate his argument so as not to straw man him in any way.
Premise 1. Minds have the property that they could exist in a possible solipsist world. As proof, nothing we experience is such that we could not also experience it in a dream world. Premise 2. Matter does not have this property. Matter existing in an immaterial world is, of course, a contradiction in terms. Thus, by Leibniz's law, matter and mind cannot be the same thing, as they do not share all of the same properties. Conclusion 1. Therefore, mind is immaterial.
Right, now, before we continue, what is a solipsist world? Well, if we look up the solipsism definition in the Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy, solipsism is sometimes expressed as the view that I am the only mind which exists, or my mental states are the only mental states. Existence is everything that I experience, right? And everything that I experience is necessarily construed by me as part of the content of my own consciousness. We can look at the rest for that online if you want. Now, what does this exactly mean? Well, it means a solipsist world is a world in which only a single mind exists, and that mind fabricates everything else. On that view, obviously premise 1 of the argument is fine. A solipsist world must contain a mind. If the solipsist world doesn't contain a mind, there is nothing to fabricate everything, and hence by definition, it is not a solipsist world. So solipsist worlds have to contain minds, which is why, premise 1 of this argument is perfectly valid. However, premise 2 is just false. Matter can exist in solipsist worlds. Does anybody remember the brain in the vat? For anybody who does remember the brain in the vat, you'll recall that the brain hallucinates absolutely everything that exists. Everything that exists is a figment of the brain's imagination. And the brain is literally the only thing that exists, well, and the vat. And those two things just sit in existence and stimuli are inputted such that the brain fabricates everything. This seems to be a solipsist world in the sense that it's the only thing that exists, and yet it is made of matter. Hell, if we're not satisfied with this, we can even take away the vat completely, and we can just have a single brain existing at some point in space, occupying all the space that there is, being the only thing that exists, and having one mass hallucination which produces everything else that exists. If this isn't a solipsism, I have no idea what is a solipsism. So it seems to me that premise 2 of Raatz's argument is patently false. We can have solipsist worlds in which matter exists. Matter can be the brain in which the mind is made of, and a materialist would hold to this. So we don't seem to have any good reason to think that this argument. In fact, I think I've pointed out a great reason why this argument is not sound.